We can all identify the important milestones and significant stopping places that collectively shape our journey through life. As we live our lives, we are shaped by the significant events and occurrences that ultimately identify and construct who we are and who we become as people. This is also true for our identity as anglers, where we define ourselves through the fish we catch, the people we interact with, and the places that fishing takes us throughout the world. As young anglers, such milestones might include the first time that we pick up a fly rod, our first fishing trip with a father, grandfather, or friend, and certainly the first fish caught with a fly that we've tied and created ourselves. As we grow as anglers, these pivotal events and experiences evolve as well. A memorable catch, trips to far-off waters, and for many, time spent fishing with our own children. For those of us lucky enough to have discovered fly fishing, there is little doubt that these are the events that improve, expand, and, ultimately, enrich our individual journey through life. These are our waypoints. Most fishermen, and especially those that travel, love the concept of an angling quest, the adventurous search for distant waters that have yet to be touched by any type of angling pressure. South African Gerhard Laubscher is an angler who from a very young age has been totally consumed by this pursuit. For the past 20 years, he's traveled on a constant search for undiscovered flats, new species, and untouched water. After pioneering a number of prolific fisheries throughout the Seychelles, his travels led him to an even more remote destination in the middle of the Indian Ocean, a largely uninhabited atoll by the name of St. Brandon's.
I had the opportunity to come here for the first time about 12 years ago and to see this fishery. At that stage, I hadn't been out on a coral atoll like this. I'd done a lot of saltwater fishing. I'd extensively fished the east coast of Africa in particular, but I'd never fished the coral atoll, which essentially is a completely different fishery. But immediately, you know, anybody with any kind of fishing experience can recognize this, a fishery like this, and realize that this is something pretty special.
Special in that you can only reach the atoll by boat.
You to know some feelings come and go, but for your mind will never change. It's harder than it seems to know what to believe. Here in my mind to hold you close. I got to keep on walking with my head held high, because I see the sky on a day like this, and I know I will be free. Oh, I will be free.
Located in one of the most remote corners of the planet, St. Brandon's is the perfect example of just how incredible a fishery and an ecosystem can be when left totally untouched by the hand of man.
I've never seen a face like yours. makes me smile just when I think of you for sure. And all we have is all we have to show. And all we need is here for free, just so I let you know. And when I hold you close, it's you I love the most. You take my loneliness away. I saw you in my dreams, and then you came to me. Will you be mine, our only hope? I got to keep on walking with my head held high, because I see the sky on her day like this, and I know I will be free.
95% of my bonefish experience is in the Indian Ocean. So that's kind of my frame of reference with it, a lot around the Seychelles. And the Seychelles does have exceptional bone fishing by any standards. But St. Brandon's takes that a couple of notches further. And it seems because geographically this atoll suits bonefish better. And the main reason we think for that, why that is because of the constant winds which we've got coming over the atoll from the east, and that pushes cold water over the flats. You've never got a build-up of hot water on the flats, which you experience a lot in the Seychelles. Because you've got that constant flow of cold water, you create a habitat which suits flats-feeding species like bonefish and permit a lot better than the atolls further north in the Seychelles. You can't compare it to anything that you'll see anywhere else. The fish are much bigger, the shoals are much bigger, the permit is exactly the same thing. There's no place where we have been to in the Indian Ocean which has more bonefish or more permit, or bigger bonefish and bigger permit than this atoll.
I got to keep on walking with my head held high, because I see the sky on her day like this, and I know I will be free.
Once you've seen something like this, your frame of reference changes, because you've now been exposed to something which in the past you could not even imagine existed. You needed to see it for yourself.
While Gerhard has been an early pioneer of this fishery, there is one person who probably knows St. Brandon's even better. An angler who has fished, guided, and explored this huge network of flats more than anyone is Fly Castaway head guide Tim Babbage.
Look, I think St. Brandon's is obviously special in its own right, but also very different to other destinations, as in the fact that it's very inaccessible. It's difficult to get to, so obviously whenever you have an environment on an atoll like that, the fishing is generally better because there's just less interference from man. But that's why we enjoy it, and that's why a lot of our clients enjoy it, because it's just that unknown. It's just pushing the boundaries, it's extreme, it's really out there. And I mean, it's what we look for as anglers, really, you know, just to go to different places, experience different things, and you know, it's beautiful.
Accessible only by boat, anglers must travel close to 300 nautical miles from the island of Mauritius. While it takes some serious time and a major effort to get there, what you find when you arrive are flats that are loaded with huge and hungry bonefish. And since, in all likelihood, you're the first one ever to cast to these fish, it's no surprise that they almost always eat.
I've fished quite a lot of places in the world, and you know, when you get to experience St. Brandon's and the average size of bonefish, it's just off the charts. I mean, it's ridiculous. On average, you're catching fish between sort of 7 to 8 pounds. Now, when it comes to the world sort of benchmark, that's considered a trophy fish in a lot of places. And yeah, you're pulling them out on a regular basis. I mean, it's your average size bonefish. It's actually ridiculous, to be honest. If you get into a good run of big fish, you can push that average size up to 8, 9 pounds. We experienced something similar this morning. A lot of good fish around, and all between the 8.5 sort of pound mark, and then finished off the day with a nice fish over 10 pounds. I mean, it's fantastic.
The thing that makes this fishery unique is that we catch these fish on foot. You're going to target these fish in 14 to 20 inches of water. You're not standing on a skiff and you're being poled around and you can see the fish from a mile away. You're going to be 40 feet away from the fish when you present to him. And just to get within 40 feet of a permit that's busy feeding is that's not easy.
Unless, of course, your rookie fly castaway guide, Christian Pretorius, who on his very first training trip to the Atoll hooks his first ever Indo-Pacific permit. The Indo-Pacific permit is similar in many ways to its Caribbean cousins, slightly more colorful, with a somewhat smaller average size. It is still an incredibly fickle, spooky, and frustrating target.
I want to be where the sun is shining, back on my feet and head off the ground. Be bought that way. I want to see where the sun is shining, back on my feet and regain my mind. I can't be bought that way.
Obviously, we market this as a bonefish destination, but there is a lot of other species and fish up for grabs, of which some are pretty special and only found in the Indian Ocean.
Aside from huge bonefish and strong populations of permit, there are dozens of other fish species, many of them bizarre and unusual, that frequent and feed on the flats. The yellow-lipped emperor, a strange and outlandish fish that seems more at home in the pages of a children's coloring book than in the skinny waters of the Atoll. Bluefin trevally are found everywhere on St. Brandon's, a regular catch and a species that will readily take a well-presented fly. The list of available targets is long, and there is no doubt that for anglers, this area offers more diversity and opportunity than any other flats destination on the planet. And of course, there are the area's legendary giant trevally, the reason why every angler on St. Brandon's packs a second, heavier rod when wading the flats. Oftentimes found hunting and feeding in the presence of large sharks, the GTs, as they're known, are without a doubt the alpha predator of this ecosystem. And while the Seychelles may have more GTs than St. Brandon's, the jeets found in these waters are almost always legitimate trophies. The guides have taken to calling the GTs the Gangsters of the Flats, a nickname that perfectly suits these powerful apex hunters. Violent, ferocious, and extremely quick, GTs hunt both individually and in schools, using their speed and power to pursue everything from tiny baitfish to large bonefish to other trevally. Landing a GT on the fly is never easy, and it is definitely not for the faint of heart. While St. Brandon's is not a place where anglers get shots at GTs every day, it is a fishery that at any time can deliver a monster fish to those willing to make the journey and pay their dues. All of us who fish have grown up hearing about just how good our favorite fisheries used to be. As a destination and a fishery that is still totally untouched, that time on St. Brandon's is now.
The thing that fuels this for me is the fact that I am an angler and that I've got this need that drives me to see these places and to experience these places and to see these fish and to just know that there are still places like this. I remember as a little boy growing up hearing my grandfather telling stories about Africa and things which he saw, and even my father, what they saw, and my uncles, and how they experienced nature. And then you grow up in a world in which the population has just exploded, and no matter how much you look for it, you can't find anything like that. And that's what drives it for me, is to try and figure out, or to try and establish for myself, for my own selfish needs, if some of these places still exist, if they are still there. It's more a case of being privileged enough to be in that environment and to just see it and to see what nature is supposed to be like. What the planet was supposed to be like. Imagine what it was like 500 years ago. Imagine what it looked like then. Imagine how different it would have been.
Clear!
Meet Dan Rooster Leavens,
Miss, clean miss.
the Yosemite Sam of the fly fishing world.
Gotta reload. Get me a little closer. We got ice now, boys.
Some people are just fine with regular cocktail ice. These boys, however, prefer the 10,000-year-old glacial variety.
Cocktails. Well, we should go up on the bridge and see what's next on the agenda. Okay, here we go. Let's go, Yachty.
The other half of this duo is Captain Travis Peterson.
Can I go next? Can I go next?
Together, these two operate the mothership Adventurous, a charter boat operation in southeast Alaska that provides access to some of the finest steelhead fishing on the planet.
You gotta follow the process, Tom.
They've worked together for close to 20 years, which helps explain why they act and communicate much like an old married couple.
You guys aren't doing that right.
Okay, this guy's ready.
Right.
You think about how many hours we've sat up here and just talked about stuff. Mexico.
Yeah. Sit up here all night long running the boat and shooting the breeze.
It's a lot of hours.
Well, Rooster and I met at a Christmas party in 1989. The Coast Guard gazebo, I remember that. We were both in the Coast Guard.
Not really interested in much else. There were no girls there.
Somehow we kind of end up at the edge of the bar shooting the breeze. It's of course, winter time, and
There were no girls there.
we're talking fishing tackle right off the bat.
And he had a broken Shimano spinning reel. And we got to talking about it, and that was it. We were friends from there on out.
I think that's when it turned bad.
I came back from a fishing trip, and my girlfriend wasn't there. She was at his house. So if there is some banter, it goes back a long ways, you know, and we both seem to have pretty thick skin.
Around in there any longer, then some bitches up there will all spawn. Maybe there'll be more.
We got a bird dog ready to go to the beach.
Y'all could use a little help. Oh! 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 Didn't want him. Didn't want him. Too bad. Two times just a little guy. God dang it. Cheap ass hooks. Straightened her out. Too much cowbell. Hey, do you mind getting out of the way down there? Oh, beautiful. There we have it. Nice fish. Got that one. Got that one. Steelhead on the fly. Hook up. Hook up.
Well, steelhead fishing here is basically untampered with. Nobody touches it. There's a few anglers around, and there's a few people that fish, but not many. I mean, basically, we don't see anybody on the rivers. You know, every now and then you might bump into somebody. There's over 300 streams in just southeast Alaska that hold fish. That makes up over 80% of the steelhead streams in Alaska. And truth be told, almost none of them are fished. And so really the amazing part, the great part about fishing in Southeast is the lack of pressure and fishing wild runs of steelhead that they're basically just the same way they were 500 years ago.
The Adventurous operates on numerous fisheries found within the country's largest and wildest national forest, the Tongass. Known as America's salmon forest, the Tongass contains nearly 18,000 miles of rivers, lakes, and streams, producing tens of millions of salmon and trout each year. This coastal wilderness is one of the few places in the world where wild salmon, trout, and steelhead continue to thrive in amazing numbers. Some 65% of the Tongass wild fish habitat, however, is not protected. Shockingly, it remains open to harmful development activities that have the potential to significantly impact these wild fish resources. As an answer to this, Trout Unlimited Alaska has launched the Tongass 77 campaign, an effort to conserve and protect 1.8 million acres of critical fish habitat. This effort can only help maintain the prolific numbers of wild steelhead that return to this region each spring.
You may not find fish on every stream, and that's the adventure of doing this. Having a 56-foot boat with 2 jet sleds on it, 2,400 gallons of fuel, a chef, a water maker, and a hold full of cold beer. Where do you want to go next?
We're mobile, so we kind of utilize the boat, the skiffs, the range of the boat to basically access spots that are kind of inaccessible.
Short-term forecast for interchannels from Kupernoff Island to Atoll Island issued at 6:28 a.m. Alaska Daylight Time. Mostly cloudy skies with a few lingering rain showers this morning. Inside waters marine forecast issued at 4 a.m. Thursday. Frederick Sound. Today, south wind 10 knots in the morning becoming light. Seas 2 feet or less. Tonight, southeast wind increasing to 15 knots late. Seas 3 feet. Friday, southeast wind 10 knots. Seas 2 feet or less. Rain in the afternoon. Friday night, southeast wind 15 knots. Seas 3 feet. Rain. Saturday, southwest wind 20 knots. Seas 4 feet. Rain in the afternoon.
Like in all fishing, you're walking a spring creek and you trick a brown, you drop a hopper behind him on his tail and he spins around and eats it. That's pretty cool. You get shot down by 10 permit and number 11 eats it. That's pretty cool. Stand in a freezing cold river for days, swinging flies, casting sink tips, hitting yourself in the back of the head with tungsten-headed string leeches. In the rain, your hands are so cold you can't tie knots. There's probably a bear within 100 yards of you at all times. And feel one of them steelhead tug on the end of the line. There's no better feeling when you miss a fish or two, and then you find the anchor. You come tight on one, and it's a good one. There's not a lot else that matters when that happens. That's you know, some fisheries, you're happy when you get a fish or two a day. Up here, we're lucky. You're probably going to get more than a fish or two a day. These fish are unaltered. This is probably, if it is not, the last stand of the true wild steelhead. And every one you catch, every one you hold, you know, you look at that fish, and I'm not really looking at the picture, I'm looking in the eyeball of that fish. You know, I would love to know what they think. I really would. 'Cause I know what I think, and I think that we're damn lucky to be able to catch them. Every one of them. They're hard-earned fish.
Steelhead on the fly.
You're nervous as a long-tailed cat in a room full of rocking chairs. Put the pressure on that son of a bitch.
Listen, you should feel the drag I have on this bastard.
Look out for the lead rock.
My arm is burning like a goddamn.
Feels like my arm's a mile from the sun.
Head button, head button, head button. Only the big ones do that.
Pull your rod in that way. Or not, just let him run again. Hell with it.
Listen, we're not dealing with just a little tiny fish like you normally get.
Oh, look at that thing. Woo! They don't normally do that. Don't let them get
We don't
swept
see them do
down.
that very often.
We got it.
That's a steelhead. Wow. Wow. Now that, see it? That is what we were after. My gosh.
There's one of them lions we've been talking about.
27 years of fishing. I've never seen anything like that.
You sure took your own sweet time getting them in.
Well, he's a little tiny thing.
Right.
Just a small, small fish. Wow. That's a steelhead. That is unbelievable. I rarely get to fish. I love to fish, of course, but also I get just a great kick out of watching people catch fish. But to catch that fish today, and then to have my best buddy there with me was really a rush. I mean, I can't remember the last time that I actually was trembling holding a fly rod. I was so excited. And then to have that dumb sumbitch there with me.
Tell me what it is you like about steelhead fishing. Why do people enjoy this so much?
But then to finally land it and look at it and touch it and take a photograph and release it was unbelievable. I mean, I wouldn't have guessed that would have happened in a million years. I was hoping maybe we'd catch, go out and fish together and catch maybe a couple fish and eat a couple good meals and have a good time, but that was an unbelievable experience.
Right now, American Oliver White and Canadian Will Fleck are wondering just what the hell they've gotten themselves into. On a remote river in the middle of the Venezuelan jungle, they're long past the point of no return.
This is not a trip I would recommend for anyone kind of in the novice or intermediate or even semi-advanced level to come and try this.
My feet hurt, my knees hurt, my whole body hurts. You know, your arm, you know,
after about 3-4 days, your arm just doesn't want to work anymore.
The gear that you're throwing is all but impossible. And it's really not that much fun. I mean, it is pure work to try to get the fly to the fish.
We're fishing, what, 6-7 days in a row, and I think you couldn't go any more than that. You need to take a break.
In this incredibly difficult place. I mean, in every respect, I mean, there's no room to backcast. You're perched on this little precarious rock point, and you're trying to keep your running line clear, and the rocks are all jagged and grabbing it, and you're throwing big, heavy lines and big flies. Just making the cast itself is so difficult.
You're going to take a beating. You really are. If you decide to come down here and fish for payara, bring the muscle rub. Bring the muscle rub, yeah, for sure.
When you chase exotic fish and leave the gnome behind, you can wake up in some pretty wild places. In this case, the Piragua River, 550 miles southeast of Caracas in the eastern Venezuelan highlands. The home of Uraima Falls Fishing Lodge and Oliver and Will's base of operations for the next 8 days. Offering some of the finest payara fishing on the planet, the lodge is also home to some seriously large empanadas, always a local favorite. And of course, there's an endless supply of fresh laba, a dog-sized jungle rat that once skinned and boiled provides Will with the perfect amount of protein for a long day on the river. And if breakfast didn't thoroughly terrify Will and Oliver, then the water they're about to fish certainly will.
The water conditions here are like nothing you've ever seen or fished. It's, you know, the first day going out, you know, you pull up to the falls and you're like, we're gonna fish where? Excuse me? I mean, it's just basically huge, dirty river, pushing over, you know, 12, 15-foot drops and, you know, class 4 and 5 whitewater, and they're like, the payara are there. And you're like, yeah, this is impossible. It's not gonna happen. And on fly tackle.
Coming into it, you try to prep yourself as much as you can, so you bring the right things, and everything you heard was just big water, big flies, big fish. And so you came prepared. I mean, I'm loaded up with big, heavy sinking lines, the biggest stuff I could find. I mean, 600, 750 grain lines, and T20 and T14, and big rods, and tying big double hook flies, and loaded up on heavy gear, and it wasn't enough. I mean, you get here, and you know, big water is an understatement. It's unfishable. I mean, it's unnavigable, it's unfishable. It's just this big, giant mess of stuff that you don't even know where to begin.
Of course, if you're as fishy as Oliver White, you begin by hooking up on a huge fish on the very first cast of the trip, catching the cameraman and crew completely by surprise.
Payara are one of the meanest looking fish I have ever seen. You know, they just have this incredible mouth. I mean, really, that is the only focal point for the whole fish is their mouth and their teeth and their jaws. And I'd caught some small payara in other places, but this thing was 4 times the size of anyone I'd ever seen. And I mean, his fangs were good, you know, 3.5, 4 inches long, and you know, just a big, heavy fish. It was an incredible way to start the trip. And you stick this first fish and you get really excited that man, this is gonna be easy, it's gonna happen, and then it just went dry, and there's nothing else after that. It's just a little beginner's luck.
As every angler knows, a big fish right off the bat means only one of 2 things: great things to come with ridiculously good fishing, or the worst kind of angling curse. When it comes to fishing in strange and exotic places, Oliver has definitely paid his dues, chasing the kind of fish that few people have ever heard of, let alone caught. Will splits his time between running a fly shop in Belize and guiding steelhead in British Columbia. An experienced angler on all levels, this is Will's first trip to South America and his first journey in pursuit of exotic jungle fish.
For me, one of the biggest challenges, you know, walking on these crazy boulders, crevices. I mean, It's like combining rock climbing and fly fishing, really. That's what it is. And you know, try not to get swept to your death in this huge river. The second challenge is just the gear, you know, throwing these big flies, these big rods, big heavy lines, and just trying to combine those two and, you know, trying to make it there safely, trying to make a good cast in the right piece of water, and just trying to, you know, just connect it all together and, you know, get that fish on the end of the line and hopefully get it into the beach and, you know, put a hand on it.
You know, trying to figure out that puzzle on a fly rod where you're in this big raging river and the water's dark and you're getting no feedback. I mean, you don't know anything, right? You don't know if you're using the right color, the right fly, the right size, whether there's even fish there. I mean, you have no information to try to process to make this thing work. And it's incredibly frustrating. I mean, to sit there and fish something that arguably you cannot fish and just kind of pound away while pushing the limits of your tackle. I mean, you know, we're throwing 12 weights. I've got a 600 grain line and 10 feet of T20, and you know, my fly is 12 to 20 inches long. I mean, trying to throw this thing in and out all day with no response, it's just an act of futility.
Most fishing trips are fun, relaxing, laid back, and generally fairly easy. And then there are the expeditions that are just plain tough. Brutal conditions, impossible fish, and the kind of hard work that is rarely associated with a pastime that we love. It's a new day, however, and a few hours of sleep, some more spotted jungle rat for breakfast, and the promise of new water brings a renewed sense of hope for Oliver and Will.
I've done a lot of jungle fishing and exploring for crazy, unique fish, and payara are cool, and I've never seen a really big one. So when the opportunity came up to come down here to where all the big ones have always been caught to try to do it on fly, I was totally stoked to get down here and come try to figure it out.
And while Oliver has managed to bring a few nice fish to hand, Will has continued to struggle, a victim of whatever can go wrong will go wrong, which is why the boys decide to head downstream in search of new water in a fishing scenario that is a bit more manageable.
So we find this incredible small stream, pocket water, and I mean, there's payara running up the falls, and I mean, it's perfect. And then a village pops out of the trees. I mean, all of a sudden there's women and kids, and it was just out of nowhere. We're in the middle of the jungle. I mean, hundreds of miles from the nearest road, and here's 30 people out of nowhere. And it was just, I mean, couldn't figure it out. I mean, where they came from or what they did, and then we look back, and all the men of this whole little village are dragging one of these giant metal boats through this bony little stream. You know, they're in their underwear and they're barefoot, and they're trying to drag, you know, a 2,500-pound canoe down something that's practically dry. And we're watching these guys, and they're trying to put up sticks and boards and push, and they finally get jammed up. I mean, and they can't move. I mean, I would have bet $1,000 they couldn't have gotten that boat out of there. And Will and I finally reeled up, and we walked over there and decided we'd try to help them get their thing undone. And man, it took the better part of an hour of, you know, hauling and pulling and prying and bracing things with sticks. And you know, we finally got their little boat free, and they were on an 8-day journey to resupply, you know, to go get food and fuel and clothes. And you know, they lived way up this river, and this was their deal. This was their life. And they had to go down, and they have to get back. And when they get back, they're gonna have even more stuff. So they're on their own.
It turned out to be a very, very, very cool life experience. I'm sure Oliver will tell you the same thing. And it was really gratifying to help those guys, you know, get that boat down that little part of the river.
So we finally had enough of chunking giant stuff in this big, gnarly water and went off exploring, looking for something a little more fly friendly and easier on the shoulder, and found this incredible little pocket, small stream. It's perfect. I mean, you couldn't have ridden it better.
To me, it looked like it was out of an Indiana Jones movie. It was just, I mean, just super beautiful, you know, 2 different braids coming into this one great pool. And it just looked like really fly-friendly water. And sure enough, it was. First one, you know, you're blind casting for these fish in fast water. You know, it could happen anytime. It could happen on the first strip, 1,000 strips. So, you know, you're tired, you're going. All of a sudden it happens and you're like, wow, I made this huge journey to come here. I finally got one on the line, and it's like, don't screw it up. You know, hooking them is one thing, landing them, completely different story. I mean, you're on a rock in the middle of the river. You're like, how am I going to get this to shore? You know, am I going to get them around that rapid that's like a class 4 or class 3, whatever? You know, literally a bunch of trees in the water, bushes, and I'm, you know, how am I going to get to shore? And, you know, I'm not going to hop rocks all the way back. And the only other option was to get in the water and swim.
Will, are you sure you want to be in that water?
Thing got tangled around the bushes and sticks, and I thought, you know, it's over. I'm not going to land this fish, and you know, it happened. You know, everything came together, and you know, luckily I didn't get swept away. But, I mean, that swim with that fish, I mean, for sure, the fish of a lifetime for me. It was so gratifying to actually grab onto that payara and lift it up, you know, over my head, and just, it was just, you know, amazing. I'll never forget it forever.
As is often the case, the fish that demands the most becomes the most memorable, the cornerstone of an extraordinary adventure.
How has this experience changed me? You know, changed is the wrong word, more like ruined probably, because it's just feeding the need for more exploration for me. I mean, I've been talking to Oliver about let's go to Guyana. I want to check out these arapaima.
That's far and away my favorite thing about the sport. I mean, I love getting out there and trying to figure it out with no information. I mean, you're going out there and figuring it out on the spot and making adjustments and trying to make it happen. And the whole adventure makes it a good ride. I mean, you meet some good people along the way, and we've got villagers popping out and dragging boats, and we're helping them do that. And you know, Venezuelan army guys showing up, trying to figure out what we're doing, and the whole thing, you know, turns into, you know, a great story, and it makes life interesting, and that's the draw. And then you throw into that a couple big fish, and it's great, man. And I sign up for those trips any chance I get.
Thoreau once wrote that true wealth is the ability to fully experience life. With an impressive amount of resources and a big picture way of thinking, Chilean businessman, entrepreneur, and modern-day adventurer Andres Urgas would clearly agree. He's created what is easily the most unique, one-of-a-kind fly fishing operation in all of South America. Chilean Patagonia is a labyrinth of inlets, twisting peninsulas, and rugged coastline. The area's towering mountains, massive glaciers, and steep, isolated valleys are home to a huge network of rivers and mountain lakes, and some of the world's best trout fishing. To effectively operate in this area and to access the untouched waters of the rugged backcountry, Andres created Nomads of the Seas and built the mothership Atmosphere.
I wanted to retire when I was like 50 and, create a network of lodges here in Patagonia. And somehow things worked, differently. We built one platform instead of many. It was cool to see how it came up together because we wanted to have some kind of a warship resembling a Land Rover or a Defender mixed with sort of like sporting yacht. You don't have somebody to get inspired by. There's no benchmark out there, nothing we could imitate or make better or copy. So the creative process on its own was like the most amazing part. And it turned into a very unique boat. It's been out there. It's been ranked #1 expedition boat in the world. 7 or 8 years later, it's still in the first 3 best expedition vessels. So yeah, it's pretty nice.
At 150 feet long, the Atmosphere looks less like an exploratory fishing platform and more like the floating lair of the arch-villain in a Bond movie. It's outfitted with the kinds of bells and whistles that would no doubt make Sean Connery feel right at home.
This whole platform, the ship, serves our flight material. That's what the whole thing is about. We have 2 helicopters on board, and we fly every single day of the season. So pretty much we're in the air all the time. My gig, or what I want people to see, is I want people to know Patagonia by land, air, and water. It's a very different approach. Nobody does it that way. And the fishing is great. It has a name and a reputation for it. And it has good access by sea. Where we navigate, which is a coastal mountain way all the way to the sea or the ocean, nobody is around. There's no roads, there's no houses. So you're practically guaranteed not to see any other human beings during the week that you're staying here.
Joining Andres for a week-long trip to fish the backcountry and explore new waters are Brett Sang and Greg Bricker, 2 professional guides from Montana who have both spent time guiding in Chile. Between flying helicopters and fishing, it's hard to say what Andres loves most. Yeah, life is pretty good when you're this guy. Greg has spent 8 straight seasons guiding this part of Chile. With Andres, however, he's experiencing the area like never before, fishing waters he could previously only dream of.
What makes this place so unique is that you truly have the idea that you can look at a map, you can look at a river, and you can say, I bet no one's fished there before. It's hard to put that into words, but if you don't know the area, if you're not familiar with the landscape and how this country is built, you can't even wrap your head around that, because just about everywhere else you can get everywhere. You can't here unless you happen to have a couple of helicopters. And if you have a couple of helicopters, well, that kind of opens things up.
Girl, I love you. Dancing around like that won't drive me crazy. But why would I want you when it's plain you're not ever wanting me? Well, my whole life, all I have was to say you talk. Never gonna be lonely when alive as music in my heart. Never gonna wanna be something I'm not. Say you're older, I'ma be happy with what I got, cause I got music and it makes me feel alright. Got this here music and it helps me ease my mind, oh. Cause I got music and it takes away the pain. Got this here music and I got it every day. Come on.
It's incredible. We went to a river that I've looked at on the map for 6 years and have always wanted to fish. And my first day, here I am. We flew in. And it's just, you know, it was ridiculous.
Say, did you see us in the background of the crowd on the TV? On the summer day, we go and catch some morning waves. Just hanging out with my friends in the vibe. Go on and be okay, just like I don't remember rainy days when I was small. No, I won't remember hatred on my finger out, cause I got music and it makes me feel alright. Got this here music and it helps me ease my mind, oh. Cause I got music and it takes away the pain. Got this here music and I got it every day.
I think if I woke up the resources that Andreas has and the ship he has and the access he has, I think I'd be doing exactly what he's doing right now. I mean, it's pretty admirable to get a chopper with a guy who's gonna fly you there, and then once he gets there, he's gonna throw a 60-foot cast and get it done and fish well and have a lot of fun, you know, with a couple simple guys like Greg and I, a couple dirtbag fishing guys from Bozeman, Montana, and we can all relate the same thing because we love trout fishing.
It's like fishing with the Dos Equis guy. I think this guy is actually the most interesting man in the world. You know, former military officer, you know, world-class fisherman, owns this incredible operation, has a life that a small fraction of the people on the planet can even wrap their head around. You know, to be honest, I didn't know what to expect. I had no idea what to expect. I've heard of this guy, I didn't know him, and I was impressed, you know, with his knowledge of the area, his fishing ability, his skills. I mean, he's a legitimate angler. I think he threw it further than Brett every day, so, yeah.
Greg and I have had an opportunity to fish everywhere from the Florida Keys to Chile to Montana. We fished a lot of places together. And of course, I'm always messing with the guy. And he's messing with me back, and we jab at each other every chance we get. There's nothing, you can't miss a beat. I mean, you gotta be on top of your game.
Brett has an enthusiasm about him with fishing that I love to have in the boat. And there were a couple of times where, you know, throughout the week and every other time where I fish with him that I kind of have to rein him in a little bit. And, you know, it's 2 inches deep here. There's probably not a fish, but you can go ahead and throw a cast anyway. It's great, but you can feel that. You can feel that from him. He truly loves to fish.
Brett and Greg have had a great time. I mean, they're great guys. They do this for a living. But I think they went away with an experience that they weren't waiting for. They wouldn't have never imagined. And it gave them a different approach to what you can do when you have the means and the platform.
Every day, it's surreal. I mean, it's really, truly strange that your ride to the river is a helicopter.
Searching all of my days, all of my days. Many a road, you know, I've been walking on, all of my days. And I've been trying to find what's been in my mind, as the days keep turning into night. Well, I have been quietly standing in the shade all of my days. Watch the sky breaking on the promise that we made, all of this rain. And I've been trying to find what's been in my mind, as the days keep turning into night. Many a night I found myself with no friend standing near, all of my days. I cried aloud, I shook my hands at what I'm doing here, all of these days. For I look around me and my eyes confound me, and it's just too bright, as the days keep turning into night.
Truly, I think I had 3 consecutive best days of my life. You know, each one better than the one before it, throughout the course of the week. You know, as the weeks progressed, everything just built and kept going. You know, it just kept getting more unreal with each day.
Now I see clearly it's you I'm looking for, all of my days. So I smile, I know I'll feel this loneliness no more, all of my days. For I look around me and it seems you found me, and it's coming into sight, as the days keep turning into night, as the days keep turning into night.
being here and seeing this coast, this fjordland, everything in it, the peripheral things, the fishing is such a small part of that. The trout becomes such a small part of that. That just getting to and from the river is an experience in itself. And then once you get there, you're like, oh, dude, I'm going fishing with a great friend and a new friend. And experiencing it that way is just a sensory overload. I hope they're handing out Prozacs on the way off this boat because it's going to be a hard one to handle when I get home.
May I have your attention, please? Roof traveling is not a fun. It can cause death. Prepare ध्यान दीजिए. 1, 2, 4, 8, 8, आनंद विहार जो
It's no secret that fly fishing can take us to some very wild places. Difficult journeys in the name of making a simple connection to a meaningful fish. And if your name is Jeff Currier, the more difficult, the better. A self-described international angling nomad, Jeff has traveled the world and chased fish in places that few people would even think about visiting. He's fished on 6 continents in more than 30 different countries, and over the years he's seen a lot of interesting things. He never tires of meeting new people, being exposed to exotic cultures, and visiting the type of places that have certainly never seen a crazy American with a quiver of fly rods. On this trip, Jeff finds himself back in India, traveling to a remote river on the Indian-Nepalese border, and a rendezvous with his longtime friend, Misty Dillon.
I met Misty at, of all things, at a sports show in California. He was looking for me. He knew I'd been to India and knew that I'd tried a Mahseer fly fish. In fact, I spent 3 months in India. It was crazy. It was one of the coolest, most difficult but amazing trips of my life. And I hate to say it, but I didn't catch a decent Mahseer on a fly. Just got whooped.
So I told him, I said, Jeff, you know, anytime you're going to come back, it'd be really a pleasure having you over. And he took us on that offer some years back. That's when he got that 27-pound fish.
Purely by coincidence, I'm not a world record seeker, but I caught the world record Golden Mahseer. Just a miracle, you might say. It was 27 pounds, and Misty actually did the paperwork. He's the IGFA guy here in India. And lo and behold, I got a record Mahseer. And that fish, I guess, in a sense, kind of changed my life because, I mean, we all know that anytime you make a cast, you could catch this great fish, but that fish was the greatest of that species that's really been caught on a fly, and I didn't expect it. But you know what? Now, whether I'm here or I'm on another trip in Africa or something, I mean, I feel like anytime I go somewhere, I might catch that big fish. It gave me confidence beyond belief for life.
So, if you've already checked the Catch World Record Mahseer box on your angling bucket list, why make the trip back to India to do it all again?
I'm often asked why I want to go after a fish that's so difficult. You know, why do I want to travel so far? Why do I want to, you know, deal with this heat and the rough terrain? And sometimes I'm like, boy, why do I? But the real factor is that the reward is so big. When you catch your first Mahseer, even if it's a small one, the colors of this fish, the strength when you hook them, you know, and you see them thrash the surface, you know immediately why they call them the Golden Mahseer. And then you get the fish in your hand, and every single scale on the body is, you've got like 5 different colors. It's mostly gold, but you turn the fish, and there's no other fish quite like it. You turn any fish, you see some different colors, but these, like, I've seen turquoise blue in a Golden Mahseer when I turned it just right. So the reward is, it surpasses any you will get in fishing. It is truly just magnificent.
It's a fish very strong in genes, indigenous to the Himalayas, completely designed, armor-clad with the largest scales on any freshwater fish.
huge fin-to-body ratio, and a fish which survives in some of the most hostile environments. On probably few rivers in the world have such a hostile environment. These huge boulders you see behind me can come crashing down during the monsoons. And the fish usually go upstream to spawn during that time. Travel sometimes up to 100, 150, 200 kilometers to spawn. Survive that, and then come back, and the juveniles then follow. It's just such an amazing life cycle. Can be caught from a skated dry fly to a drag-free nymph, swinging streamers, just about anything. We've just scratched the surface here.
Jeff has joined Misty in the foothills of the Himalayas at one of Misty's tent camps at the confluence of the Saryu River and the mighty Mahakali. This region is the Indian frontier, an ancient land where the Mahakali River separates India from Nepal. Despite the fact that this part of the country is extremely isolated and difficult to reach, it is still populated, which in a country of 1.2 billion people is no surprise. The walk from camp to the river each day is always an experience. A simple hike can become a cultural passage as you encounter and interact with a way of life that has remained largely unchanged for hundreds of years. The confluences where Himalayan rivers meet are considered spiritually powerful locations, which is why they are oftentimes looked over by a Hindu temple and a head priest known simply as the Baba. Before fishing the home pool of the confluence, you must first meet with the Baba, where, if lucky, you'll receive his permission and his blessing. Which clearly works, as Jeff steps into the water and immediately hooks the first Mahseer of the trip. And like most productive fishing runs anywhere in the world, a hooked fish immediately draws a crowd. The Golden Mahseer is an amazing fish, strong, selective, and definitely a prize when landed on a fly. That said, there are those who might question why anyone would travel around the world to catch a member of the carp family.
It's India. It's a country which has thousands and thousands of years of culture. Some amazing cultures that are still exist, live much the same way they've done for thousands of years. It's the whole picture of India. It's the history in different generations, how they've carried it along. And of course, the Mahseer is a large part of it for an angler. Extremely strong fish. The few fish in freshwater that fight the way a Mahseer does when you get it. And it's a challenge of getting it, quite like a permit. And it's a mind game. It's a fish of 1,001 casts. But when you get it, it's so satisfying that it just makes the whole trip so complete and the experience so complete.
I'm one of the freaks that actually knew about Mahseer when I was a little kid, because I got McLean's encyclopedia when I was like 5 years old. Everybody else was reading those Dr. Seuss books. I was reading about all these different fish. And one thing I remember as a kid, you know, it's actually alphabetical order. I was in the M's, this fish called a Mahseer, and it said that its scales were so big they were used for luggage tags. And I remember my dad was traveling and I'd seen him fill out his little normal suitcase tag, and I'm like, imagine if that was a fish scale. That would be the coolest thing in the world. And I pretty much told myself, someday I'm gonna catch this fish. And as I started traveling, you know, you start with stuff close to home, you get further and further, and then on the complete opposite side of the world, I finally found myself fishing from Mahseer, and it turns out they're the toughest fish to catch even when you get there.
When fishing for such a complicated species, an angler like Jeff makes things more difficult by switching it up and throwing a dry fly. And since this is India, just when the fishing gets good, something strange is bound to happen.
Just when I really had a couple big fish starting to get interested in my dry fly, like a 20-pounder looked at my fly twice, I know I was going to get him. I had to reel it in. Not because I was told to, but in respect, because a funeral went on, literally right there.
Most people equate rivers with life, moving waters that renew, purify, and give new life to all things. In India, however, the rivers are also associated with death. It's on the banks of these waters where the dead are cremated and their remains scattered into the rivers, where all things eventually find their way downstream to the Ganges.
You're never going to have that anywhere in your fishing life unless you get out there and travel. You got to be out there to see this stuff to believe it.
After several days of fishing on the Saryu, Jeff and Misty break camp to begin a 65-kilometer float on the much larger Mahakali.
We're going to a place that's featured in one of my favorite books called The Man-Eaters of Kumail. I read it every time I come to India because it's about a famous tiger hunter. He actually saved lives. Tigers do become man-eaters, and when they ate like not 200, not 300 people, over 500 people, they called Jim Corbett to come get these cats. And one of the places he shot a very famous tiger that ate over 500 people was down in the Chuka. And he also did a little fishing there. And in the book, it talks about one day where him and a buddy caught over 100 mahseer. Now, sure, that was 80 years ago, but I'm expecting to see a couple mahseer down here today.
It's on the fly you chose, Misty.
The Currier, it's the Currier, it's not the fly.
That is a proper fish.
Yeah, it is. I got a quick glimpse of him near the surface. He's fighting like he's 30 pounds, but I think he looked, I got a flash, and I thought he was like 12. Yeah, I'm gonna fight him a lot more. Yes. He's Kali fisher. Stronger. Yeah.
In this part of India, the rare American with a fly rod and a big mahseer is not your everyday occurrence. Rare enough, in fact, to break up the daily Chuka cricket match.
That is a proper fish, Jeff Currier. Proper.
Big fish at Chuka. Unbelievable.
We spend a lifetime searching for certain fish that, when landed and brought to hand, we hold and appreciate for a few brief moments. These become essential recollections, the waypoints that mark the path back to the places where perfection was found, if only for an instant.
Rivers and valleys heading west to the sea. They'll never find what's inside of me. Alone in the sun, alone when the day begins and the day is done. In the sun, alone when the day begins and the day is done. Rivers and valleys head west to the sea. Rivers and valleys head west to the sea. Rivers and valleys head west to the sea. Rivers and valleys head west to the sea.